Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Specifically, big game experience, which I think is very valuable. Another positive is we have our entire staff back for the second year, which I think is huge.
There'll be a lot of chatter about hot seat business. That's part of it. The way you combat that is having a good football team, which we're going to have, and winning football game, which is what we're going to do. I got a lot of confidence in this team, this staff. This is probably the most complete team we've had since I've been at the University of Florida.
There's a couple of the voices from day one of the SEC Media Days. Voice one was Gus Malzahn, the defending SEC champion Auburn Tigers that he is leading in year number 2 under the Malzahn regime. And that second voice is Florida coach Will Muschamp, starting year 3 of his campaign in Florida. Year 1 went wonderfully. Year 2 was a complete disaster. And year 3, as he mentioned, has him firmly on the hot seat. He's bringing that up right out of the gate. He'll bring it up so we don't have to. Kevin McCrary and the Professor Tom Hayes holding it down in our Columbia studios. Phil Kornbluth back from vacation. First day back from vacation. Everybody knows that first day back from vacation is always a little, it's a little tough. You know, you've been on the beach, you've been on the cruise, you're feeling good. It's tough to get back in the swing of things. But when you do it at the SEC Media Days, which is a circus by all accounts, hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds, probably into the thousands now of credentialed media, fans showing up at the Winfrey Hotel, it is a complete zoo. It's an event that means absolutely nothing from a sporting standpoint, but somehow is a huge national thing. ESPN has been broadcasting live from there. So anyway, Korn has been among the masses today, and I think he probably feels like he's been hit by a Mack truck, but he will be joining us momentarily from Hoover to update us on everything that's been happening. In the meantime, Pro, I hope you had a fabulous weekend. Welcome back.
See, that's why you should push yourself and do something you don't want to do during vacation, so you want to come back to work and say, boy, I needed a vacation from my vacation. It's interesting when you hear the Florida coach, this is the most complete team I've had since I've been at Florida. The word most complete and Florida shouldn't be made in the same sentence. That's like saying this is the most complete Alabama team I've had since I've been here. You just don't use those terms. A team like Florida ought to reload, not most complete.
You know, he's not setting the bar low, and he has to win and win big. I mean, that's the kind of thing, you say that sort of thing. If you promise, you better deliver. And he knows, regardless of what he says, they have to win football games. If Florida does not finish in the top 3 in the SEC East, maybe the top 2, Will Muschamp's going to be looking for a job.
Here's the problem. They want offense because, let's say, Steve Spurrier spoiled them because the 2 defensive coordinators they've hired since Spurrier, Zook and Muschamp, they don't like defense. They want offense.
Step up.
It's the unofficial start to the college football season. SEC Media Days cranking up today in Alabama. Steve Spurrier and his crew will make the rounds first thing tomorrow morning. In fact, he does his first media availability at 8:30 tomorrow morning with the local media, and then he'll go around the Winfrey and talk to all the national media on hand to cover the event. So we'll have that for you. Also, I'll be making my way up to Sunset, South Carolina, first thing in the morning to take in Dabo Swinney's annual media golf tournament. Dabo Swinney, one of the more tenured coaches in the ACC in just year 6. There's only a couple of coaches that have been there longer than Dabo in year 6 running the Tiger program. So we'll have Dabo Swinney and Steve Spurrier for you tomorrow. Lots of coverage from SEC Media Days coming up. Kornblut will be connecting with us momentarily from the Winfrey Hotel. You can connect with us also. 800-956-7266 is how you reach out. Grab a telephone line and chat with us live and on the air. You'll get a big audience to take in everything you have to say. We'll answer your questions, tackle your concerns, your comments, your complaints. I don't know what you could possibly complain about now that we actually have some football to talk about. It is officially talking season, and it'll be talking season for the next month, and then it'll be time to really go out and play the game season. But I'll take talking season over watch list season and list season just in general. Talking is a little bit better. We're hearing from Gus Malzahn. We're hearing from Will Muschamp. We heard from Derek Mason today, first time he's made the rounds through SEC Media Days. So we have some stuff to talk about, and we will do that. You can also email us, talkback@sportstalksc.com. Follow along on Twitter @SportsTalkSC. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/SportsTalk Radio Network. It's been a rough few days for the Auburn football team, Pro. Friday, if you were tuning in, we told you about the issue, and you probably have heard about it by now, but if you've been under a rock or coming back from vacation and missed the news, Auburn quarterback
Nick
Marshall, was not arrested, mind you. Very important to note that he was not arrested, but he was stopped and cited for possession of marijuana. Had less than an ounce, according to the Georgia police officer.
Well, remember, he's not an NFL player yet. Had he said NFL,
it didn't happen in Lawrence. I mean, you just speed in parts of South Carolina and you get put in the clink. But he did not get arrested, and right now, he was scheduled to be there today. He was supposed to be at SEC Media Day, and surprise, surprise, Gus Malzahn said, that's probably not going to be the best idea to bring him out. So they left him behind. Malzahn would not talk about what he's going to do, wouldn't speak to that right now. He did say that Marshall has learned his lesson and is growing from it and understands that he made a mistake. Auburn opens with Arkansas next season in an SEC West matchup.
Well, it's interesting. Some people will say that's his punishment. Is that a punishment? This time last year, there's no arrest involved, but the partying and oversleeping at the Manning camp, and Texas A&M threw Johnny Manziel to the wolves. You ought to talk about the nonsense you've been in, and they made him go to SEC Media Days. Maybe the punishment for Nick Marshall, Coach, I know you're not going to let me. You're punished. You're going. Mm-hmm. So that might have been a greater punishment.
Two school of thoughts. Now, was Manziel, did all the autograph stuff, was it already in the forefront when he showed up at SEC Media Days last year? Was he talking about
think
that
it was.
the autographs, or was that just coming out? I don't remember the exact timeline. The Manning camp had just happened. I do remember that, but I don't know if the autograph game had cranked up yet, and people were wondering if he was going to play. But he knocked it out of the park there. I mean, he was very good at SEC Media Days last year. Auburn defensive end, more bad news for Auburn. As continuing that theme here, Auburn defensive end Carl Lawson has a torn ACL, according to Gus Malzahn, and they don't feel real good about him playing this year. Maybe he could get back towards the end of the season, but right now it looks like they're going to be missing Lawson for the entire season. So that's a loss for Ellis Johnson and that Auburn defense.
Well, the key point is obviously it's a big loss, but, at least you find out now and you can make some adjustments. If he blows out his knee right in the middle of the first game, then you really got a problem. But right now they can give him time to have the surgery, get recuperated. If he can come back all well to the good, if you don't want to waste a year, just redshirt him if he hadn't used a redshirt year already.
Yeah, we'll see how Auburn plays that. He's going to have surgery, though, and certainly miss some time going into next season. So they have some questions, and anytime you're the defending SEC champion, you already have that target on you. So everybody's coming after Auburn, and they're off to a little bit of a shaky start with some off-the-field things in terms of legal stuff for their quarterback and injuries to their defense, at least one significant injury. I mentioned that we are now moving into talking season and past the list season where you get to find out who has the best entrance in college football and the best stadium. There are more lists, actually. We're winding down list season, but there are some more lists, and there are some more of our people on these lists, so I feel obliged to at least in passing mention what these lists are and what local players that we have on them. And a Clemson trio and one Gamecock are on the Lombardi Award Rotary watch list. It's the Rotary Lombardi Award watch list. Let me see if I can get that out. You think that's a mouthful? Here's who the award goes to every year. It's limited to down linemen, end to end, either on offense or defense, who set up no farther than 10 yards to the left or right of the ball, or linebackers who line up no farther than 5 yards deep from the line of scrimmage.
Why not just write down those who put their hands in the dirt? How about that?
Yeah, well, linebackers don't put their hand in the dirt, though.
Some do,
Yeah, because Stephon Anthony's on that list.
In the dirt.
Clemson linebacker Stephon Anthony is on that list. Vic Beasley is on that list, and Grady Jarrett. If there's a list, it seems like Grady Jarrett's name has been on that list. Anything that he's eligible for, he's on that list. Same goes for Vic Beasley. He hasn't been left off many lists. So those three are on the list from Clemson, and A.J. Ken, Gamecock offensive lineman, is representing USC on the list. Also, Stephon Anthony is on the Butkus Award watch list, and that one's an easy one.
Yes.
That one goes to the top linebacker in college football each year.
Dick Butkus, one of my favorite players to watch. There's not many players you watch when a team is losing. But Dick Butkus was one of the best football players to watch when the Bears were losing, because that's when he said that his job really took place. His job was to make sure the quarterback and running back forgot about their assignments and just became concerned of their personal well-being. That's the way he played. The only NFL player ever to knock Larry Sonka out of a football game.
Yeah, Butkus was a tough one.
Yeah.
He deserves to have an award named after him. I don't think there's any doubt about that. All right, other non-football related things that we can pass along. We've reached the Midsummer Classic portion of the season. The All-Star festivities underway in Minnesota. The highly coveted Home Run Derby. I don't really even watch the Home Run Derby. I just turn up the volume all the way so I can hear Chris Berman repeatedly say back. I mean, just on a loop. There's nothing better than that. The dog starts howling. It's just great. The baby's crying. It's wonderful. It's an annual thing every summer in the McCrary House to do that. Don't care who wins the Home Run Derby. Just love to hear Chris Berman. It's the Chris Berman Derby, if you ask me. So you have that. Of course, tomorrow night is the big game. Starting pitchers were announced today. Adam Wainwright, the St. Louis Cardinal ace, will get the start. And Mike Matheny's the skipper for the NL squad. So he's going with his guy. Mm-hmm. That's fine, even though we all know Clayton Kershaw should be the starting pitcher for the National League in the All-Star game. The guy just throwing a no-hitter. He's given up one run in his past, 50 innings. But, hey, we'll go ahead and start your guy. King Felix Hernandez from Seattle will start for the AL squad tomorrow night in the Midsummer Classic.
Why does it sound like this is his third start in a row? Am I mistaken? Looks like he's always starting.
I couldn't tell you who started the last 5 All-Star games.
when you overshadow Verlander, you know you're doing something right. Yeah, it's a lot of class there. Pack your bags. You're out of here.
We'll get hot and heavy in our SEC Media Days coverage momentarily. Phil Kornblut will be connecting with us at some point from the Winfrey Hotel. You know, Steven Garcia is at SEC Media Days. He never made it as a player.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Spurrier would never put him on the list. But he is there for the first time this week as a member of the media. He's working for Saturday Down South, the football website. And I think it would be spectacular if he was able to get around Steve Spurrier tomorrow and ask him a few questions. I put that on Twitter today. I think that the internet would break if Steven Garcia did a one-on-one with Steve Spurrier, just talked about the season, the quarterback position. And somebody actually, I have to give him credit on Twitter, responded it would probably be even better if he got Eric Hyman and did a one-on-one with Eric Hyman.
That won't happen.
That would be epic stuff.
But my point has always been that one of the things about Steven Garcia, and this is just my personal opinion, is because we didn't have all the media coverage that we have now. And I've always had the feeling that Steven Garcia reminded Steve Spurrier of himself when he played at Florida. Remember, he always used to say he hit the beach or something, and saying when he was in the NFL, he didn't worry about working out too much. He said, man, it's a great job. I can sit around and do this. I think Garcia reminded him a lot of himself in his college days. That's why he kind of put up with some stuff.
What did Spurrier call the jail when Garcia went there again? Pope, you'll remember this. What did he call it? The
What was the question one more time? I'm sorry.
Spurrier called the...
Oh, we would have called it the jar.
The jar, yeah.
Jar. Steve's in the jar.
Steve's in the jar again. Well, Steven's not in the jar. Maybe Kornblut, he's getting set up. I think that might be code for I'm having a few beers with Garcia at the Winfrey Bar right now, catching up on old times, recruiting times. But Steven Garcia is certainly one of the more electric players in SEC history in terms of his off-the-field status. I mean, it's legendary, and the whole, the long hair. It was pretty impressive to watch the Steven Garcia era. Of course, it ended as it almost had to. It was a cluster and a train wreck. But the Alabama game where he played lights out to the Auburn game, his final game, where he was just bad, just really struggled in that loss against Auburn at home that ended up being the difference between South Carolina playing for an SEC championship and not. But I think Steven will certainly be entertaining there at SEC Media Days. Heck, maybe we could track him down and get him on the show and relive some of the glory days, good and bad. So that tells you just what kind of circus it can be at SEC Media Days. It is quickly honing in and zeroing in and trying to surpass perhaps the NFL Media Day for the Super Bowl. It's almost on a bigger scale.
It's a bigger scale than me.
The Super Bowl, nothing compares. But this SEC Media Days, it's turning into an event in and of itself. You have the SEC season, SEC Media Days. It's amazing. So anyway,
Steven Garcia, still the only USC quarterback to take the Gamecocks to the SEC championship game.
He is only one.
I've been invited to. It means a lot to me, first, that I just made the final table after being invited, and now if I can have a really good showing, it's, kind of like me proving that I do belong here, and I feel like I do, so I'll definitely feel really good about that.
Brian would somehow like to get it all in. What's the right amount to raise at this point? I'm all in.
All in and call. Two kings versus ace king.
How'd you like to be Derek Mason, man? And the guy following the one guy that he could actually win ball against at Vanderbilt was the one guy I don't want to be. I've got Muschamp and Malzahn ready to roll if you want to go to them.
I want to start out by giving a quick recap of last season. One of the most, towards the end of this year.
All right, stand by, gents.
Sports Talk continuing from our Columbia studios and also SEC Media Days in Birmingham, where we will connect with Kornblut in just a couple of minutes. Also, we'll let you hear from the coaches that made the rounds, let you hear little excerpts from all of the coaches as they made the rounds. Will Muschamp, Florida Gators coach, who the Gamecocks will see this season. Auburn coach Gus Malzahn, the defending SEC champion, who the Gamecocks will see this season in Jordan-Hare Stadium. And also Derek Mason making his first trek around SEC Media Days, and another coach that the Gamecocks will see on the other sideline in Nashville later this season. So it is a very active day in Hoover, and we'll get you up to date on everything that has happened. Some not so great news for USC coming down last night with the word that they won't get one of their top players pro in school this year, and that would be Dexter Weidman, the Shrine Bowl defensive lineman out of Saluda High School, who at one point was committed to Florida State, backed away from that commitment on signing day and pledged to the Gamecocks, signed with the Gamecocks, but did not get into school, so now they're going to work to get him into prep school and see if they can get him enrolled in January. If not, he might have to go the JUCO route, and that would be a 2-year wait before he gets back into school. And, of course, he would have the opportunity to reopen his recruiting if he does that. In fact, I think you can you reopen it if you just go to prep school?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
technically – when you don't get into school, you become a free agent again. Now, most of the time, guys hold steady with their pledge, but you don't know what's going to happen. And speaking of not knowing what's going to happen, the Gamecocks knew they were kind of on the fence in terms of whether or not they were going to get Weidman, but they're also on the fence with a few other guys right now. They have 4 more that are still waiting.
3,
including a couple of defensive backs. Willie Green.
I think it's 3 defensive backs.
Chris Lamons.
And Darren Smalls.
There's
3.
Yeah, so they're hoping to get at least 2 of those guys in, if not all 3. We all know that the Gamecocks are very, very thin in their defensive secondary. Yeah, especially at that corner.
There's a lot at the end as safety, but they're short at corner. The interesting thing is, though, a guy like Weidman, you do what you can, because if you go the extra mile, you go the extra mile for an in-state kid. And sometimes we've seen guys where the coaches kind of stay with them. That's their impetus for making the grade. He just could not make it. And so if you're going to stretch your neck out, you want to stretch it out, especially for an in-state kid.
In addition to our SEC Media Days coverage, we will have a Braves report with Mike Morgan as we head into the All-Star break. The Braves and Nationals neck and neck in the NL East right now. And then we will also, in our next hour, talk some SC Pro-Am with the captain, Kerry Rich. It cranked up last week. They had matchups on Thursday and Sunday, and that thing is really gaining traction. It's amazing to see just how big this event has grown. There used to just be a few players from South Carolina. Now it's the entire healthy Gamecock basketball squad out there. Frank Martin sent his whole crew over to Heathwood Hall. You've got some Clemson players on that team. USC Upstate's represented. You have former players like Devin Downey and Carlos Powell. A lot of really good talent. Dominic Archie also playing. The North Augusta native, former USC standout, who's doing well overseas. So we will catch up on what went down in week 1 of that SC Pro-Am. So we have a busy show. Still working on his corn. He and Garcia are selling the tab there at the
they're
the
sadly I can't
Hotel.
pull him away from Garcia, but we're close. I'm getting him connected right now.
Okay, should we hold off on corn or should we jump into our? Yeah, let's go ahead and jump into our coverage because I don't want to get too squeezed. And I think it's appropriate to begin with the defending SEC champion Auburn Tigers, as Gus Malzahn starts year 2. Had to answer some questions I'm sure he didn't want to with the deal with Nick Marshall, but didn't really get into that, but did preview the upcoming season for the defending league champs.
I want to start out by giving a quick recap of last season. One of the most enjoyable, rewarding seasons that I've been able to be a part of in my whole career. Our motto last year, our theme was together, and that's how we did it. Players, coaches, managers, administrators, we did it together. Our goal was real simple, was to improve each practice, and I really feel like for the most part we did that. It was also to improve each game. We definitely did that. We were playing our best football at the end of the year when we needed to. Some great memories that we'll remember forever. Winning the SEC championship, going from worst to first was definitely special. And then at the end of the year, coming up 13 seconds short, winning the national championship. That was definitely a tough pill to swallow. But I will tell you this, our players and our coaches are extremely motivated going into this next season. The upcoming season, we lost some key players. Some guys will be hard to replace. D. Ford, Chris Davis, Trey Mason, Greg Robinson, just to name a few. But we do have a lot of experience back on both sides of the football, specifically big game experience, which I think is very valuable. Another positive is we have our entire staff back for the second year, which I think is huge. Same offense, same defense, same terminology for our players. They're used to it, and I think that's very big. Our coaches are great coaches, but they're even better people, and they're great examples for our players, which is the most important thing. for me. We had a very productive spring practice. Our offense, we focused on being more balanced. I really feel like we accomplished that. Defensively, we focused on really just the techniques and fundamentals of our base defense to get more consistent, and I really feel like we accomplished that also. Overall, I really like what the team is, going into the fall season. Quick update on our quarterback Nick Marshall's status. It is a privilege and a reward to represent Auburn here at the SEC Media Day. Last Friday, Nick lost that privilege. We have high expectations for our players, but specifically our quarterback being the face of our program. Up until last Friday, Nick has been a model student, teammate, and citizen. Nick made a mistake, and he'll have to deal with the consequences. I'm not ready to say what those consequences are at this time, but he will deal with it. I know he's regretful, and he feels very bad about it. Also, I'd like to update the status of Carl Lawson, our defensive end. Just like to confirm that Carl had successful ACL surgery the first part of May. He injured his knee the last week of spring practice. Dr. Andrews looked at it, wanted to wait a couple weeks till the swelling went down just to be sure, and he confirmed that he needed surgery. It was successful. Carl is working extremely hard, and he's determined to come back, towards the end of this year.
So Gus Malzahn says there will be a punishment for Nick Marshall, but he's not ready to say what that is. And, what do you really gain at this point in saying it? I know coaches are extremely paranoid by nature and want to hold things as long as they can, not to give Arkansas in this case, who was the opener for Auburn, an advantage. I don't know what kind of advantage that would be. Maybe they'll wait till the day before the game and announce the punishment. Maybe that'll be how they play it.
They run the stairs at Jordan Hare. What the heck?
You got to think he's going to be suspended. The question is how long? A game? A half? Multiple games? What is the going rate for a citation for a small amount of marijuana at Auburn or any SEC school?
Since it happened during the off-season.
This is where you wish that maybe there was a league-wide policy on these things to where you just take it out of the coach's hands and there's some uniformity. Because at Georgia, Mark Richt probably would have already suspended the guy for an opener. It's very clear-cut. Georgia, to their credit, because it doesn't give them any sort of advantage, but they have a very strict policy on these things when it comes to drugs. Even if you're not arrested, even if you don't fail a drug test, you can get in pretty steep trouble for these kind of things, and we've seen that happen.
Some of it is zero tolerance now at Georgia.
We've got Mike Morgan in a Braves report coming up. Also, we'll get back down to Hoover and connect with Cornblue.
All right, Corn, let's do this. Let's figure it out. Now, of course, he's talking to somebody who I can see in the mirror. Who are you? I don't recognize you yet. Kind of blurry. Of course, I can't unmute him now, so he can't hear me. Great. There we go. Unmute yourself, Corn, for me one more time. I muted you again, so I can talk to you. Can you hear me yet? Unmute yourself, unmute.
Do you hear me?
Wait.
You hear me?
Are you with me?
Yeah.
Sorry. All right.
How we sound?
Well, I only have one headphone now.
Maybe you only have one headphone.
Well, one of my ears works.
Why is it? I mean, because it doesn't move.
It sounds like you got Ghost in there again.
Yeah, it does sound like there's stuff in the background.
Does that sound any better? Does that sound any better?
No, just go ahead and hang it up and redial it again. It's the only way we're going to clear out that line.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here. I hear you.
Hang on. Does that do anything?
No, it's one of those things where you're just going to have to drop it real fast and call back.
Does it do anything?
No.
Does that do anything?
No, it doesn't have anything to do with your end with the tile line or anything. It's all about with the way you connect to the internet.
Do you hear me?
Yes, do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now. Say,
Check one. Check one.
Okay. How well do you hear me?
I mean, I can hear you, but it sounds like you're in the background of, a bunch of ghosts. I mean, it sounds like there's something in the line. That noise. It's just we connected weird with the internet. So if you just drop it, redial it back, it should clear that up.
Yeah.
Other than that, you sound great, but I got to get rid of that noise.
All right, I'll call you right back.
I'll be right here. I'm going to bump Mike back for you, all right? Isn't time for you to hang up. Then we'll go 55.
Okay, how we looking?
There we go. That sounds a lot better. Help me out, K-Mac. You got 2 ears.
Let me hear.
Check one.
Hey.
Much better.
There we go.
Much
cool,
better.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds good. That was just one of those connection things, Corn, where you got to clear out that.
I don't know why, but I was just talking to the guys that use the table that I'm at, and they've got the tie line and the ISDN and the internet line worked fine for them this morning. I don't know. It's always something.
I bumped Mike back so we can bring you in here, all right?
Yeah, good idea. I think we should go ahead and jump to me. K-Mac, bring me in. Let's talk about today. And did you see the Carolina depth chart that was in the media guide?
I saw you tweeted it.
Yeah.
I got to bring you down, guys. Stand by. Remember to keep quiet here for a sec, Corn.
Okay.
All right, Mike Morgan coming up later. We pushed him back a bit because we finally have Cornblue. We've connected with him. He's closed out his tab. He was hanging out at the Winfrey Bar, catching up with Steven Garcia, reliving tales from the past. But now we have him live from SEC Media Days, our first taste of Cornblue since he's returned from vacation. He didn't go down with the Corn-Tannic. He didn't drown at the beach. He made it to Birmingham unscathed and survived day one. I think just barely survived day one of SEC Media Days in Hoover. Corn, welcome back.
Well, I'm not going to say it's good to be back. I mean, when you're on vacation for 2 weeks, including a cruise to nearly South America and then a week at the beach, you don't want to come back. But I'm back, and I have jumped right into it. Did I mention that I went to a nude beach while I was on my cruise? I don't think I did.
Yeah.
So
that's an image that people don't need. It's kind of close to dinner. I don't think we should be traumatizing our audience.
I didn't say that I participated. Actually, we didn't go, but there was a nude beach available at one of the islands that we stopped at. But we went to the other beach. Anyway,
okay.
it's been a crazy day here in Hoover. We just finished up with Vanderbilt, and we've got that up on our website. The preview of their new coach and some comments from him, Derek Mason. We also, of course, had Auburn in today. Gus Malzahn, not going to say a whole lot about his quarterback in that situation right now. He's going to let it play out for a little bit. And, some people are questioning whether or not they should have brought him here today. He did not come. Originally, he was supposed to be here, but they decided not to bring him. Some people have criticized Auburn for that. But he said he's going to take a little bit of time here. There will be some consequences for Nick Marshall as a result of all this, but he didn't say what those consequences are going to be. Will he be suspended for the Arkansas game? I doubt it. I imagine that he might not be given a start, but he'll maybe sit out a quarter or something like that. The coach said he was very remorseful about the whole situation. So I think he feels like they're going to get that resolved in a positive way for the kid and for Auburn. So we've had Auburn in today, and we've had Florida in today, and Will Muschamp pretty much said, hey, I know I'm on the hot seat. That's going to be talked about going into this season. After winning only 4 games last year, he knows he's going to be on that proverbial hot seat, but he feels good about bringing in his new offensive coordinator. He feels good about Jeff Driscoll being healthy and this offense being a better fit for him. He feels like this is the most balanced of what will be his 4th team, the most balanced team that he's had at Florida, including the one that won 11 games a couple of seasons ago. So he's very optimistic. That's the tone, of course. But a day pretty much without any controversy, no major news. You got the top sports media guys from around the country here, and they're all trying to dig up some sort of big time story, which does occur at SEC Media Days from time to time. But this was a calm day. Nobody said anything outlandish, and nobody got things stirred up. So we look forward to tomorrow, where 4 teams will be here, including South Carolina. They're first up in the morning, and Steve Spurrier is going to do a separate session with local media, the South Carolina media, before he comes downstairs to see everybody else. So we'll hit that up for you about 8:30, which will be 9:30 Eastern Time, 8:30 Central Time, and then he'll do his session in the big media room, and then he'll make the rounds, and 3 Gamecock players will be here as well: J.T. Surratt, A.J. Cann, and Dylan Thompson. They couldn't find a quarterback with initials for his first name to go along with the 2 linemen. So we look forward to that tomorrow. So we're off and running here, and off to a nice, peaceful start for a change at SEC Media Days.
Well, one of the issues out there that really doesn't mean much as far as football concerned on the field is the fact that we're about 6 weeks from the launch of the SEC network, and they're still scrambling for carriers.
Well, that is one thing that Mike Slive made today in his State of the SEC address that he gives this time every year after he goes through all the accomplishments of the league on and off the field of play. He talks about other issues. He talked about, of course, what he brought up last year, and that is the major conferences doing their own thing if the NCAA doesn't do what they want. And he also, of course, gave a strong push for the SEC network, talked about all the live events that are going to be available, and he said they are working diligently on signing up more outlets for the SEC network. They've made progress in that area and with a number of different outlets, and they're, of course, trying to get some of these big ones, these real big ones, lined up as well.
Took my pens, took my readers.
A preset.
Oh, we're going to do Mikey or Corn.
Okay. Oh, good. It's got my little thing up there. How's my my banner look?
Better than ever, Corn. Oh, SEC MD 14. That is cute. SEC Maryland 14.
That's their thing. That's what they do.
SEC Maryland Connor Shaw, blue background.
All right, sounding good?
See, yeah, sounds good.
All right. Which coaches have you played so far?
We just did Malzahn.
Okay. Their audio quality through 3 coaches has been awful. I mean, for a league with, $8 billion in the bank, they can't afford a damn malt box that's worth of crap, or they can't get people. And the guys are doing nothing to fix it. How's my is my camera set okay?
Can you see your text box there, Corn?
Let's see. I don't have a text box
Probably
open.
been for no reason for the past 20 minutes, huh?
You've been what?
5 minutes, whatever it is.
Well, hang on.
How you doing?
A special All-Star break episode of our Braves Report. Mike Morgan joining us now as we hit the unofficial halfway point of the season, Mike, and the Braves and Nationals in a dead heat right now, tied atop the NL East going into the Midsummer Classic, and a much-needed break for everybody in baseball, I think, right now.
Well, I think everybody would agree with you on that, and I think for the Braves, nice to end on a winning note in terms of winning not only the game yesterday, but winning the series against the Cubs. I think that would have been a dour way to go into an All-Star break by losing to one of the worst teams in baseball. But they took care of performances at the plate, got just enough out of Tehran and Minor in a starting role for the back-to-back wins. And like you said, a virtual tie in first with the Nationals. I think this is the one year where that race is actually going to live up to the billing because as I've thought all along, there's nobody else in the division that's really a contender. And I think both these teams, while they're very good, they also have flaws. And I think those flaws prevent them from separating too far from one another. So I think we're going to be having quite a race, not only in the early part of the second half, but I think it'll last late into the second half as well.
Well, I know the Braves are looking for more bats, but they have to be buoyed by at least the first few weeks of Tommy La Stella at second base, not only with his fielding, but I think he has something like Mike, about 8 to 10 two-out RBIs already. So, and he's had a couple against, I think, left-handers as well. So, this guy seems to be the real deal.
He is. I think that there was maybe some concern when he went through that slump there for a while, second time through for a lot of guys, a lot of pitchers that were facing him. Scouting report starts getting spread a little bit more specifically among major league pitchers and coaches and managers. But the bottom line is La Stella is just a naturally good hitter that I don't think you do what he has done in his time in the minors and then all of a sudden fall apart. You know, sometimes there's certain facets of a guy's game that they do really well in college and in the minor leagues, but then it doesn't translate well at the major league level. I think in the case of La Stella, everything about his approach at the plate and his swing says that he's going to be a good hitter for a while to come.
And he shows up to the ballpark on time, and that's pretty important, too.
Oh, no.
that never hurts, yes, like some other individuals.
Yeah, update on Gaddis.
I think Gaddis will be back very soon. He's in Rome. He's been taking swings. I think you'll see him right after the All-Star break.
Mike, enjoy the break. We'll catch up with you when we start the unofficial second half of the season.
You got it.
All right, Mike Morgan in our Braves Report. Brought to you by Whit Suber of Home Shop Realty, where less gives you more. 803-518-3888, and Founders Credit Union, helping you attain your financial needs. Top of the hour break. More coverage from the SEC Media Days. We'll check back in with Corn on the other side. Don't go away.
Corn, unmute for me real fast, if you would, please.
Yes, sir.
You got some serious work done in that office, man.
Well, I came in yesterday. I mean, they're moving our stuff out, aren't they?
I guess so.
So I went ahead and packed all my stuff up.
The BC powder today, and your whole office is clear. So
it's in one of those crates. It's in one of the crates that's labeled as "Move to my new space." If you're still looking for them, just find that crate. Make sure you keep that.
So you didn't do it? Somebody else did it?
No, I did it.
Oh, okay.
Last night. I came in from the beach last night, went directly there, packed all that stuff up, went home, got to bed about 1 in the morning, I left my house I pulled out of my garage at 6:30 and got here at 11:45.
You're an old man, Corn. That's tough business.
So I'm running on fumes.
Yeah, when I told K-Mac earlier when I talked to you on the phone, that's the most lethargic I've ever heard you.
Oh, did I sound lethargic?
You sounded terrible. Yeah, if I ever get around doing the show, I'll get there, whatever. Tie line works, it works. If it doesn't, so be it.
Well, that's kind of how I was feeling about it. I don't know why it's not giving me. Of course, this sounds good, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, knock on whatever.
As long as it sounds good. We'll stick with this.
All right, if it's on that top layer of your crate, I'm going to see if I can get one of those BCs. Right back. I found it.
Just make sure that sticker stays on there.
Of course, it was in the last crate I looked in, but I found it.
Help yourself. You put them back?
Yeah, they were right up on top. It looks like the first crate you got in there is that old recruiting binders?
Those big ones, yeah. Those two big crates, that's all recruiting stuff.
Yeah, I opened that one first. There was recruiting there, and the one to the left was nothing but old, prehistoric radio tapes.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
I found corn from '83 under pre-grand birth.
Problem is, I got no equipment that can run it. And all that stuff is old stuff.
That would be fun to listen to. Find some kind of machine somewhere.
Well, I was going to do some stuff over at VOC with it until
the incident
got LJ'd.
Keep in mind you're on Google there, sugar.
Oh, yeah. But you got me down in Q, don't you?
You're not going through the board, but I can't do anything with Google at all.
No.
Just remember that.
Doesn't matter. Are we doing Kerry or no?
I got a text out. See if he responds.
Or maybe we just stick with football. I thought it'd be good to do since we're coming off the weekend.
I think it would be. Great promotion for him, too. Not that he really needs it anymore. I think it's huge.
Oh, something I want to start here. can you put together the sound effects of a pucker and a very loud kiss?
For
the pucker of the night. It's going to be, K-Mac, I think, pointed out on Twitter the other day with somebody that it's illegal. He posted the rule. It's illegal for a fan to go on Twitter and communicate with a booster, with a prospect. So I'm going to
all right, we're going back.
Okay. It's going to be called the pucker of the night.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
We've got the whole gang back together again. Well, not all the way back together. Kevin McCrary, the Professor Tom Hayes, holding down our fort in studio, along with Graham Pope, producing behind the glass. Kornbluth has rejoined us from his long vacation, a European vacation, a holiday. He's been gone for about 2 weeks, back with us now. Korn, I know during that vacation it gave you ample opportunity to make a list of things that really stick in your craw for all the wrong reasons, things to get very upset about,
Well,
the fact that they call it the women's Final Four, things like that really.
Yeah, I mean, the World Cup. I'm sick. I was sick of the World Cup because I was on a boat that was sailing over 1,000 miles away, or cruising, not sailing. There were no sails. We had motors, and we were in the Caribbean and down near Central America and South America. And of course, all the television stations basically were in Spanish, and everything was involving the World Cup, and I could care less. And but I saw where they set all kind of TV ratings with that championship game yesterday. So whoop-de-doo, 1-0, quite a thriller in overtime. The one thing I did want to say, as we turn our attention back to the real sport of football, did a lot of reading and preparing for the upcoming season. My feelings are even stronger, South Carolina, Clemson, where I think South Carolina is headed for an 11-win season minimum. I think Clemson is headed towards a 9-win season maximum. Now, you'll be with Dabo and the Tigers tomorrow, K-Mac, up there.
Be sure to pass this information along to him, your prediction here. He'll appreciate it.
Well, they just lost I've got to be convinced that they're going to be good on offense. I think they're only going to be about a 25 points per game kind of offense. Now, their defense is going to be really good, and that might be enough for them.
Yes.
But, I don't see them beating Georgia, Florida State, and South Carolina. And there could be another one in there, too. But I'm going to say 9. I'll give them 9. And they should be, if they win 9 games with the players they lost off of that offense and with that offensive line, I think that would be quite an accomplishment.
See, I think they will beat one of that trio between Georgia, Florida State, and South Carolina, that they will win one of those games. But I could see a scenario where one of those other games, being a game like at BC or at home against North Carolina the week after Florida State, or at home against Louisville, where they could run into some problems. But Clemson has been pretty good about beating the teams they're supposed to beat over the past few seasons. They've beat the teams they were supposed to beat and lost to the teams they're supposed to lose to. Now you wonder, are they going to spring that upset? And they beat a few teams they weren't supposed to win in bowl games. The LSU win and the Ohio State win. They were underdogs in both of those games.
And, of course, a couple of years ago they got in a shootout with Maryland, which if they had the offense they had now, they'd probably lose. But they had Sammy Watkins and that crew back then, and every time Maryland scored, they just scored 2 touchdowns to every Maryland's one.
Hey!
I do. I was going to ask you earlier, but I had to run upstairs.
Sammy was huge. You remember he returned the kickoff, too?
We talked about this last week.
Yeah, he loved it, too.
some reason, your I can't the Ethernet's not working for me.
What do you mean? Did you try it?
Yeah, I tried it. It's not connecting back to my receiver. In fact, it worked okay for you this morning?
Yeah, it's been really good.
I don't know if it's
Ooh, news, breaking. This is what we've become, man. I tell you what. You know, if I'm supposed to care, why would I follow those guys on Twitter if I cared about stuff like that? I would go do that myself. I don't need an outlet in news to tell me that. Oh, I'm sure it's coming. Listen to me. Here's why. He likes tomato soup. The other guys like chicken soup. Something random. I suppose we gotta go Muschamp next. We're going in order here. Unmute yourself again, Corn, please, if you would.
I'm demuted. Let's talk a little bit, and then we can run a little Muschamp here.
Give or take how much you want to run, Corn.
Well, there's only, I think it's what? How many minutes did I put up?
10 minutes total.
We'll run. Well, that's his whole opening statement. We won't. We'll just run about 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay. Remember, I do have to mute you for when we do go to audio, so just keep that in mind.
Thank you. I'm just trying to get to this damn shit. No, come on. Hang on. Okay.
Thank you for letting me squat over here. I know. I got a feeling there's something wrong back at our place. State man, did you check to make sure the that line is plugged into that timeline?
It's raining in Minnesota. What am I going to do, Pro, if they wash out the home run derby and I can't hear Chris Berman calling back all night?
My thumb knows exactly, without even any prompting, where the mute button is.
Well, they'll play. What they usually do in those circumstances is they'll play the previous year's home run derby. And it'll probably confuse people like Daytona earlier this year when people are like, wow, Jimmy Johnson's going to win it again, even though it was last year's. Nobody figured that out. So I'll still have last year's home run derby to get me through. Cespedes will win it.
But we talked about this before. I always thought that, you always want to have an outdoor setting if you can, but when they moved out of that dome in Minnesota, the elements are going to come back to haunt as early as July. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Because those dark clouds are just floating over the stadium.
Hey, Corn, I want you to know, by the way, we are at the All-Star break now. The Yankees have a worse record than the Dodgers, so I'm adding that to your tab now with all the Celtics defeats. Now you're currently up to you owe me $5 now. It was 4, now it's 5.
Well, K-Mac, there's an entire second half of a baseball season to be played, and it's very likely that we will get red hot and you will go ice cold, and that will be reversed. And I look forward to the day when I collect my winnings from you in the near future.
Yeah, when's Tanaka going to make his next start? Oh, is it too soon?
So that's not very nice to be making fun of somebody's injury situation.
You know what?
2 or 3 weeks of rehab and get that elbow back in shape. A little voodoo medicine from Japan and flown in here. Something made out of I don't know, whatever they have in Japan that heals things quickly.
One of A-Rod's doctors to him. He's not using them right now.
Well, maybe what Kobe did when he went to Europe and had that knee transfusion or whatever he had done.
Blood spinning.
Yeah. Whatever works, we'll be happy to try and do. Back to football. We're here at SEC Media Days, day number 1 in the books. We heard from Mike Slive, the commissioner. We heard from 3 of the head coaches. 4 more coaches coming in tomorrow, including South Carolina's Steve Spurrier. Maybe Spurrier will stir it up a little bit. I don't know. Seems like every year he has some unique idea he wants to bounce off of everybody. We'll see if he brings anything to the table tomorrow. The question is, where will the media pick South Carolina to finish in the preseason poll? That is our poll question at sportstalksc.com. Go there and click on one of the answers, first, second, third, or fourth. I'm thinking, in all likelihood, I got to believe they'll vote Alabama and Auburn ahead of South Carolina. I would say for the overall championship, I'd vote them third. Alabama, Auburn, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Auburn scares me. As I said before, while they were a tremendous team, I never could figure out where they had them hidden, but there are some mirrors on that field. And they've used 8 of their 9 lives on those wins against Georgia and against Alabama. That's why you're seeing this stuff come out now, The quarterback gets arrested.
Yeah, but besides all that, though, I mean, you break them down. They return 9 starters on offense. They got the quarterback back. They got they do lose Trey Mason. They do lose Robinson, offensive lineman.
Yes.
But they've got a bunch of people back on offense. Carl Lawson, here's another note from the day. One of their defensive ends had an ACL tear. He had surgery back in the spring, and Malzahn said they hope to have him ready to go by late in the season. So that's a loss for them. He was a really good player. They've got a good team returning, so I would not discount Auburn's chances of repeating in the West. I know they had 2 miraculous wins last year. They might not take a miracle for them to do it this year. But then again, you have to factor in Alabama and LSU, of course. And Ole Miss could be a dark horse in the West. In the East, I think Florida is definitely going to be much improved if they stay healthy. No doubt they'll be much improved. And Georgia will be a question mark. We'll see how they fare against Clemson in game 1. But I think they're a question mark until we see how good their quarterback play is. And I guess you could say the same thing for South Carolina. And Hudson Mason had to play some real-time games last year when he came in to replace the injured quarterback. So he got some real-time snaps. We know Dylan Thompson's had some snaps under fire, and we kind of know what he can do. But I would say South Carolina overall in the SEC, I would pick them third.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody pick them number 1? Our poll question, several people have picked South Carolina number 1. Not enough to make that the number 1 answer.
Might be some South Carolina fans.
The rose-colored glasses.
The other thing that interests me, Corn, is this. Gus Malzahn sneaked into town, went into Auburn. Okay, well, we know what kind of offense he's going to do. He started to show a fast break using all kind of movement and running plays. Now it'll be interesting to see, now that all the defense coordinators have had film on his season, and done their homework. Be interesting to see what adjustments or tweaks he does to that system, because it's interesting how you can jump on people with a certain system and suddenly, wait a minute, they're starting to figure out what we're doing. Be interesting to see what he does this year. It's going to be a chess match as always.
No, I think he does more of the same because they've recruited very well. He's got the quarterback back. I don't think he's going to change his stripes. I think you've got to figure out, like you said, you've seen film on him now, but they've seen film of his offenses when he was at Arkansas State and when he was the coordinator at Auburn, because he's running the same offense that he ran when he was the coordinator at Auburn. So people have seen enough of that offense to know what it's going to do. They just haven't figured out how to really stop it yet. And you have to attribute that to his smarts and his creativity with his offense and the athletes that they have on that offensive team. And they've got their wide receivers returning. Marshall should be an even better quarterback than he was last year, having gone through last year. They just have to find a replacement for Trey Mason, who was as good as anybody, as hot as any running back in the country for an extended period last season. So I would say Auburn's definitely a team you have to consider strongly in the West.
And, you know, the interesting thing about Auburn's offense, and interesting just about some of the things that some of the NFL scouts have already said about Robinson, and this will tell you the problem for defensive linemen in the SEC, is that some of the scouts, as soon as they saw Robinson and they got ready for the draft, anything you'd like Robinson to do, well, you know, we got to see him in pass pro a little bit more. But the basic thing he has to do with his talent is stop holding, because that's the first thing we noticed, that he holds a lot. Well, he could do that because they don't call holding in the SEC. Mm-hmm. And suddenly the NFL said, well, yeah, we got to kind of wean him off that holding because that's one thing he'll get flagged for in the NFL.
Corn's pretty high on Nick Marshall.
Well, I mean, you know, last year, you know, he rushed for 1,000 yards, 1,068 yards. He passed for 2,000 yards. I get it, the high part. Hey, listen.
I was wondering how long. We were counting down. How long is it going to take that joke to get it?
Listen, you know, let's talk about that for a minute. I mean, here's the thing. If you're a program, do you have a rule that says any drug violation is going to get you suspended? Any drug violations, no questions asked, is going to get you suspended? Or do you weigh the gravity of the situation where he was not arrested? He was only given a citation, and because apparently he had such a small amount.
Right.
Do you take that into consideration and let him off the hook?
Well, I think you take it into consideration. It's better than, you know, having a felony arrest like the kid from Georgia, the basketball player that was kicked off the team, if he had a pound. But we don't know, did they take him back to Auburn and give him a drug test, and did he pass it? I mean, what was he doing with it? You presumably would think that he was going to or had smoked some of it.
Suppose
and then you do get into the drug
in Colorado or Washington. It's legal there.
Maybe that's where he got it. But you got to do something, but I don't think you do a bunch. I agree with you there, Corn.
He doesn't smoke it all.
He doesn't smoke it. I'm going to try this thing again. Because
Colorado
tomorrow night, we need to have this thing working tomorrow night. Oh.
Thing is, Auburn's, you know, they're not worried about a little weed, you know, especially when it comes down to what they had. Whatever that they pulled off of Cam that year, blow an ounce of weed is nothing. We're talking about $250,000, bro.
Hey, Steakman.
See.
Have we tried to take any calls or anything yet?
No, You just mute yourself on me? What are you toying with?
I'm here. I just rebooted my box trying to see if I can get this.
You talked to somebody over there about the tie line?
Yeah, I was talking to the gentleman who uses it. He said it worked great for him this morning. I don't know why.
Just our luck.
It is not working for me. It's got to be on your end. Did you check to make sure it's plugged in on your end? Did what's his name go in?
Touched it.
He hadn't been in there?
And everything else in here, but they didn't touch my tie line.
I wonder if they've cut it off or something.
Weird thing is they left the $2 in here for Corn using bad language.
Not bad language for saying.
It's still a no-no.
Let's do. We'll do Will. Tell K-Mac to throw it to me. We'll do Will Muschamp here.
All right, throw it to Corn. We'll do Muschamp. K-Mac.
Will Muschamp be at SEC Media Days this time next year? Corn, that's the question. He's going to have to win some games this year to get a return invite with the Florida Gators after last season.
Yeah, 4 wins. That does not cut it for Florida.
Among others down the stretch. Their worst season in about 3 or 4 decades, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, 4 wins is not going to cut it with the Florida Gators, and he realizes he's got to turn around in a big way. And he was one of the coaches to speak in the big room today to about 300 or so members of the media. Let's listen to some of his opening comments.
Excited about August 3rd. That's when our guys come in. We'll start practice on August 4th. And 20 days from now, after a very disappointing, frustrating season last year at the University of Florida, falls on my shoulders and going through it. A very difficult year for us. Certainly not our expectation. There'll be a lot of chatter about hot seat business. That's part of it. The way you combat that is having a good football team, which we're going to have, and winning football game, which is what we're going to do. I got a lot of confidence in this team, this staff. Florida phases on offense, defense, and special teams. Looking forward to getting. After 3 years evaluating after last season, like you do after every year, and looking at what you need to do to improve, to take steps forward, we've really played pretty consistently well on defense. We were very inconsistent the latter part of last season, which is disappointing. But I feel like the things that went wrong certainly were fixable within our organization. Special teams, our coverage and return units have been outstanding. Our specialists did not perform as well as we felt like they could have last year. I think we've made some amends there. I think Kyle Christie and Johnny Townsend are 2 guys with NFL legs. I think they certainly will both kick on Sunday, and their competition will make each other better and make our punting situation better. Austin Hardin, I thought, had an outstanding spring. Scored 4 in the spring game, and a guy that I think continues to improve after going through a rough season. Frankie Velez and Brooks Abbott's a walk-on that's kicked at Virginia Tech a couple of years ago. Were certainly some guys that possibly could help us in that situation. So I feel like we can make some amends there, but we needed to make some changes on offense. I felt like our kids had lost confidence in some things that we were doing offensively. I went back and looked at our numbers from 2012 when we were in the shotgun as opposed to being under center. When Jeff was in the shotgun, our yards per play in the run game and the pass game were better. Our explosive plays were better in both the run game and the pass game. He was recruited to Florida to be a gun quarterback. And so in making that change, I felt like Kurt Roper was a great hire for us from the standpoint of a guy that was on the same page with me and what we want to be, and that's a balanced offense. Last year at Duke University, he had over 20 rushing touchdowns, over 20 passing touchdowns, and that's the type of balance I think we're going to need to have in our league. Y'all have heard me say it before, you can't get one-dimensional in this league, or you're going to really struggle, in my opinion. We've been too one-dimensional on offense.
Will Muschamp, Florida Gators, he's got high hopes going into year 3.
High hopes. High hopes. High hopes. High hopes. Alabama.
What you want to do here, Corn?
Won the game. We need to do a little Derek Mason. His audio was I had to skip the opening few minutes of his audio because it was horrible. It was too hot. They finally turned it down a little bit, and it's better. Let me hear. I know where we picked it up. We'll run a little bit of him after we come back and chat.
Jim had already recruited a certain type of young man that.
Talking about at Stanford, you want to pick it up there?
Yeah, that's where it starts.
Yeah, it's definitely hot.
It gets better. It cleans up a little bit. I was signaling to them to turn it down.
How much you want to run? Give or take.
3 or 4 minutes. I'm gonna do this Gamecock depth chart. I got a couple of notes I can pass along here too.
Yeah, Houston kind of struck out, man. That was obviously the big thing. You can't let the best point guard in the league get away. I did too. No, me neither.
Tell K-Mac to bring me in quickly. I got something to bring up we can kick around before we get to Mason.
All right, Corn wants you to bring him in quickly so he can toss him around before we get to Derek Mason. He is the coach of Vanderbilt, in case you need to know. Ever. I was just starting to lighten up or get used to old Franklin, too.
Yes, I do.
No, I get to go first because I asked last week. You can go after me. What do I say?
Stand by, guys.
Corn at SEC Media Days in Hoover. We just heard Will Muschamp, and I was reading that he had about a 10-minute opening statement. And I think we need to see a dueling press conference between Muschamp and Dabo Swinney. Last man standing wins.
That'd be kind of scary, but you're right. That'd be a heck of a contest. And throw Dave Odom in there as the referee. By the way, K-Mac, and I'm calling this your college football playoff certainly has given us a beautiful trophy.
I actually donated that. I got it in a softball tournament.
Yeah, I mean, how chintzy can they be when it comes to designing and making a trophy?
They got to go on the cheap, to give the players all those benefits.
About as chintzy as the AFC and NFC title trophies.
I don't know. I think I'd rather have that than. I mean, one of those is named after George Halas. That's worth more than that piece of junk today.
With the crystal ball. I like the crystal.
I like the crystal ball. Yeah, picking up the crystal football.
Every now and then, like the one at Alabama when a recruit's parents were playing and it fell off and it shattered in 10,000 pieces on the floor. There was nothing wrong with the crystal.
I haven't seen the
football.
trophy. Is it cheap?
No, it's really bad.
Well,
it looks like it's made out of tin.
Out of a bowling league. Yeah.
No, it's not very impressive from the pictures that I saw. It's not very impressive. But anyway, I digress. We are here at SEC Media Days once again. One of about I don't know, looks like maybe 30 or 40 sports talk radio shows from around the Southeast, all over Alabama. I see a group here from Arkansas. Of course, Tennessee's represented. South Carolina, of course, represented. Florida heavily represented. Tennessee, all throughout the Southeast. And you've got Sirius XM radio here as well. And, of course, ESPN has set up shop upstairs as well, and they've been doing a great deal of live broadcasting here today, and they'll do it over the next 3 days. It's the first time this has gone to a 4-day format. This usually begins on Tuesday and ends on Thursday. But I guess they felt like they wore everybody out last year, squeezing 14 teams into 3 days. So now they've spread it out to give you 14 teams over 4 days. And that includes Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's still in the SEC. And actually, of course, a team that's been on the rise the last 2 years, back-to-back 9-win seasons, guys. The question is, can Derek Mason keep it going from what James Franklin started?
That's the question du jour. That's going to be a very tall task. Franklin did the right thing. He won at Vanderbilt and parlayed that into Penn State, or he could have had an NFL job. He parlayed that into the top coaching commodity in football, really on all levels. He was mentioned for about every vacant job, college or NFL, that last year at Vanderbilt.
He came in with a swagger. Derek Mason looks like the kind of guy, much like his boss at Stanford, David Shaw. They just have a quiet confidence about them. You know that if he gets the players to play like they're supposed to, they're going to have a salty defense. It'll be interesting to see if he tries to emulate Stanford's offense rather than spread it around and just try to knock somebody's face in the dirt, because, I would think that sometimes I saw Stanford, and they had 5 or 6 tight ends in the game to block for just one running back. So it'd be interesting to see what he does offensively there at Vandy.
Well, he'll do a lot of what he learned under Jim Harbaugh when he was there. And you mentioned, of course, he worked with Shaw, too, after Harbaugh left. He also spent some time with the Vikings in the NFL. Here's a little bit of what Derek Mason had to say, taking some questions from media members and harking back to his days at Stanford and working under Harbaugh and taking what he learned there and bringing it to Vanderbilt.
At Stanford, Jim had already recruited a certain type of young man that fit that scheme, that system a little bit, both offensively and defensively. For us, at Vanderbilt, we're actually changing over, in the scheme right now, both offensively and defensively, and that brings about, a need for immediate buy-in. And for us, the buy-in has been really, really good. I mean, our guys know and understand exactly what we do. We're probably about 70% there, just in terms of what it looks like. This summer was used to try to get us the rest of the way, and then we'll do it again when we come back to fall camp. In terms of, just looking at, who we are overall, the similarities, between the two schools are evident. Good academic institutions, that play really good football. Vanderbilt has its own brand. It sits in the SEC, which is the best conference, college football. So for us, when we talk about, who we are, and what we look like, the idea of using the brand of academics and athletics, as well as recruiting a certain type of young man. Okay, and that young man's called the Vanderbilt man. He's when you talk about integrity, when you talk about character, and I know some people laugh because it sounds cliche, but we won a lot of games over the last couple of years with 2- and 3-star players, and they probably weren't as talented initially, as some of the guys that they played against. But what it came down to was, our ability to put those guys in position to make plays, and those guys' ability to execute. Okay, understanding situational football. that, separated, those guys from everybody else. At Vanderbilt, you have a similar brand, similar, type of young man in terms of his understanding of what we're doing. And now when you infuse that with the idea of our system, what we stand for, and how we want to play the game, and it's a physical style of football. Not much different than what's been played in the SEC for a long time. So for me, I'm truly excited about knowing exactly who we are, and that's what we have to do. We have to stick to who we are, know what we are, but stick to that brand and recruit that type of young man. And recruiting went well last year. We're well on our way right now, so we feel good about where we're at.
Okay, Coach, we'll go over to the right on the front row.
Darren Southard, Maryville Daily Times. Within the quarterback battle, kind of putting athletic Patton Robinette's game experience environments that he.
Anytime you have a young man who's played, in games, it's something that you can't replicate. So. We need to make sure that if we're going to be successful, that we have to solidify the quarterback position overall. So for us, with the addition of Rivers, with Wade Freeback, with you look at our freshmen, you look at Grady is now healthy. We're going to have 6 guys competing at the quarterback position.
Okay, there you go. Some comments from Derek Mason, new coach at Vanderbilt. One thing unique about him, he has business cards, and they're made out of metal. I think they're hard. They're not made out of paper. They're made of a hard substance like metal. And he handed them out to one of the media guys who brought it up, and he talked about it. He said it's a way of branding and distinguishing and getting recruits to think about Vanderbilt and to think about him, and he went and gave one to the media guy. So, always thinking of ways to get that edge over the competition. So we'll see how he does at Vanderbilt. He's got, as he mentioned, quarterback situation. He's got about 6 of them he'll be working with going into the fall, and then he'll try and name one by the first game and see if he can get off on the right foot at Vanderbilt. And the problem is, as soon as he loses a game, especially if he loses one early, people will be saying, well, here we go. Same old Vanderbilt, back to where we used to be after Franklin left. They open up with Temple, so he should win that. Then they get Ole Miss at home. That'll be a good test for him. Beat Ole Miss at home. Then you get Massachusetts. And then the Gamecocks come in, K-Mac. So they could have a 3-0 start opening up with 4 games at home.
Yeah, that always tough place to play in Nash Vegas, where they have about 4,000 screaming fans on a nightly basis.
They had Ole Miss beat last year and then gave up that big play.
You can find more
very
people
late.
at Tootsie's on Broadway than you can at that stadium usually.
Finally got your recruiting report tonight there, Corn?
Got it.
Sweet.
Have K-Mac bring it back, and he
Hey,
can
Rock.
toss it to me.
Got it.
Thank you. Six, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Boy, I miss the days of Frank Thomas and Ken Griffey as the finalists in the Home Run Derby.
About 20.
9-2, 9-3 area.
Got to figure out why this is not working.
That's exactly right. I specifically remember watching the 91-92 game one of those years, maybe 90. Yeah, it was, it was definitely before 93 because Bonds is still a Pirate. But I remember them announcing the starting lineups, and it was at Fulton County, I guess. So it was at, it was the Braves Stadium, and they announced, Barry as the starter hitting the 3-holders, and they booed the hell out of him. Of course, here's the voice now with all social media. Guess what this coach did to me? We come straight to you here, Corny. I'm going to have K-Mac throw it to you.
I can take it.
No, we'll bring you back here. Stand by. Corner will bring it back. Jump right to REC.
Well, I'm going to do a couple of notes. Okay, we're back. The SEC Media Day #1, which wrapped up about an hour and a half ago with Derek Mason of Vanderbilt coming through. We've got 4 more teams coming up tomorrow. South Carolina will be here in the morning. We'll have Steve Spurrier and the Gamecocks covered for you on our website, sportstalksc.com, so check that out. Early in the morning, we'll be talking with Spurrier first around 8:30 or so, well, 9:30 Eastern Time, 8:30 here locally. And then he'll go to the main room at 9 o'clock and then go on from there. A couple of other things I wanted to mention before we got into the recruiting news of the night. Lugoff Elgin, Dave Thomas has been named the interim head football coach. That was announced today. Craig Marlowe was named the interim AD. Those two replaced Scott Jones, who left both positions after retiring last week. Then he was named the offensive coordinator at Ben Lippen. Meantime, at Ridgeland Hardyville High School, they've got a new head football coach. It is Jamal Nelson, who was the running backs coach and special teams coach at Spring Valley last year when they went 12-1. So he is now the head coach at Ridgeland Hardyville. And let's see. K-Mac, did you mention the Lombardi Award guys from USC and Clemson that are on that watch list?
Sure did. And the Buckus Award watch list that has Stephon Anthony on it.
Well, you're just all over it. And you touched on this, but again, this big news in SEC basketball. Georgia dismissing Brandon Morris from the basketball team today after he was booked yesterday on felony charges of marijuana possession, intent to distribute. He was suspended for 3 games last year, and he averaged about 9 points and about 3.5 rebounds per game last year. So that's a pretty big loss for Georgia basketball. Now, I can understand, not to compare this to the situation at Auburn, because it sounded to me like Morris had a load of dope on his hands, while at Auburn it was just a very, basically a very small amount. So,
but they did to distribute.
Yeah, I'm saying that's Morris had a boatload, more or less, I guess you could say. All right, to recruiting now on this Monday night. Couple of things to tell you about. Don't know if K-Max touched on this, but I'll mention it anyway. The Dexter Weidman story. Did you mention that earlier by chance?
Touched on it, but we could have a completely different audience tuning us in now.
Well, this is true. This is the dedicated recruiting audience tuning in now. USC Shrine Bowl signee defensive lineman Dexter Weidman of Saluda is not going to make it in, is not going to qualify. First reported last night by Tony Morrell, the Big Spur, and then confirmed today by Stuart Young, his coach at Saluda. Of course, when the Gamecocks signed him, they knew that it was he was going to have to do a lot of work. He did work, from what I gather, did everything he could do to get qualified, but couldn't get it done. So hopefully, according to his coach, the hope is that they will get him into Fork Union Prep for this semester and then get him into South Carolina in January, which, I know to a young man when this happens, it feels like the end of the world. It isn't. Kelsey Quarles went that route at South Carolina. Clemson's had several. Josh Watson went that route. Both schools have had several players go the prep school route for a season, then join them and go on to great things. So no reason to get discouraged if you're in that situation. So for South Carolina, Weidman becomes the fourth recruit 2014 class so far to not qualify. Dante Sawyer, Justin Thomas, Kalen Ritchie. And they're still waiting on Wesley Green, Chris Lemons, and Darren Smalls. This is one thing that really gets my goat with the NCAA and the clearinghouse and all this. The cases of those three DBs, or at least two of them, Green and Lemons, and maybe Smalls too, they're having to retake their tests because the NCAA doesn't trust that the schools can give fair tests, because the player scores apparently improved too much from one test to the next, and thus they're being forced to take it again. And, that's like putting a gun to their head, that the pressure, knowing that they didn't believe your last score and you've got to go back and repeat that. That's a tough way to have to take a test.
It almost gives you incentive not to improve too much. Well, do better on the next one, but don't do too much better, because then they're going to flag it and you're going to have to take it again. So just do just enough to get in.
Whatever happened to that court case when the parents, I think one kid, maybe it was on the West Coast, made a higher grade, and they said we got to flag it, and I think the parents sued, but I never heard anything happen to that lawsuit.
Well, apparently they didn't win it because they're still doing it.
Exactly.
And so that's a shame that they have to go through that. But for their sake, you hope that they can repeat the good work of before and get it done again and get into school. All right, I got a few more notes. We'll give it to you after the break.
Corn, you recognize the name Terry Langston?
Terry Langston.
Circa 1988.
No, what'd he do?
He was a big-time recruit in Garndale, Alabama. I just Googled NCAA flag test score, court ruling. This case arises on appeal from the district court's grant of summary judgment in favor of the defendant American College Testing Program, ACT.
Yeah.
Against Terry Langston. ACT reserves the right to cancel any test score.
Mm-hmm.
It believes it's invalid. Stand by.
All right, let's wrap things up with a few more recruiting notes here on this Monday night. Defensive back Rashad Roundtree of Evans, Georgia. He remains open regarding his recruiting. No favorite, no top 5. He's been to Ohio State, Georgia, Auburn. Going back to Georgia this month for Dog Night. And he said Georgia's been showing him the strongest interest. Still hearing from Clemson, USC, likes both. Plans to visit both before he makes his decision, which won't come until after his season. Camped at USC last summer, never been to Clemson. After he makes his rounds, he's judging the schools on just how he fits in and how he feels with the coaches and players. Other offers include Georgia Tech, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Duke, Michigan, Virginia, Georgia Southern. Defensive end Darian Roseborough will commit on August 29th at 2:30. Clemson, one of his 6 finalists. Athlete Jason Lewis from Virginia narrowed his list to Miami, Oregon, Arizona State, Ole Miss, and LSU. Clemson also was an offer. Basketball, Kisri Grondrzic, a 5'9" standout, female, 2016 class, Benton Harbor, Michigan, narrowed her list to USC, Baylor, UConn, Louisville, Maryland, Michigan State, Indiana. K-Mac, how do you like this girls basketball recruiting we're doing?
I love it. I'm just amazed. I'm glad you're an equal
What was her name
opportunity
again?
recruiting updater.
Kisri Gondrzic, Kysre. C.J. Williams, 6'6" from Orlando, Clemson and South Carolina. The 2 schools involved with him, apparently watching him over the weekend. Rajon Tucker, 6'5" from Charlotte. Clemson has offered him a while back. Florida Gulf Coast offered him over the weekend. And in baseball, Clemson got a commitment over the weekend from right-hander Riley Gillum, 5'11", 170, Kennesaw Mountain, Georgia. He has a fastball clocked as fast as 93. And Alabama was on him heavily. Georgia Tech, Auburn. Last season, ERA under 101 strikeouts in 15 games. Had a no-hitter last season. So with that kind of arm, if you're Clemson, cross your fingers and hope that he escapes the draft next summer and you get him into school. Sounds like a heck of a pickup right there. All right, there you go with recruiting. And tomorrow, guys, we've got 4 more coming in. South Carolina will be in first thing in the morning, so we look forward to that. Also tomorrow we have got Mississippi State, Texas A&M, and Tennessee. And we'll have it all covered for you throughout the day, sportstalksc.com, and back here on Sports Talk tomorrow night. And K-Mac, you're heading up to the mountains.
Heading up to Sunset, South Carolina for Dabo Sweeney's golf outing.
So tomorrow night, Spurrier and Sweeney, one place only here on Sports Talk. And I will wrap things up from here in Hoover. Thank you, K-Mac. Thank you, Pro. And thank you, Steak Man. We'll see you tomorrow night. All right.
So pretty much same itinerary tomorrow. You think you could get here a little bit earlier?
Oh, yeah, my stuff. I'll have plenty of time tomorrow because we do things